Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Wendy Yee.
And today we're taking a look at a game called Block and Key, which, just as a heads up, has nothing to do with the TV series / graphic novel called Lock and Key.
It does have to do with blocks. I don't really understand where the key comes from, though.
Because there's that show called Lock and Key, and yeah, you're right, there is no thing. Maybe the cards are the keys? Yeah, they're called key cards.
Oh, okay. There you go.
There's no theme in this game. This is a game, I need to come up with a name for this genre.
Polyomino?
No. The genre is putting things out on a board and then matching a pattern on cards. There is a lot of games that do this.
Sure.
This one is more three-dimensional. In fact, Wendy's going to show you right now.
Block and Key is a polyomino game where players are placing out these polyomino-shaped blocks, and they're basically trying to score. But the deal is that you score from your perspective. So everyone sits on a different side of the board and will have different ways of scoring and basically see a whole different board. So on your turn, you can either do a excavation action where you're collecting cubes, or you can do a placement action where you're placing cubes and hopefully scoring cards. If you choose to perform the excavate action, you're going to be choosing an entire row or column worth of blocks, and you'll collect those. You can only have a max of 7, so you have to discard any extra that you don't want over that 7. And then you're going to refill based on the pips that are showing. You're going to start lowest to highest. So as we pull these randomly from the bag, we will refill up, and it'll be ready for the next player's turn. When choosing the placement action, you have to follow a few different placement rules. You have to be at least diagonally adjacent to anything that's previously on the board, but then you also have to make sure that any columns that you are creating are taller than anything that is orthogonally adjacent to them. So for example, if I place this here, this column's 3 high and the column behind it is 3 high, so it would not be an acceptable placement. However, if I diagonally put it against the green, it would be okay because there's nothing orthogonally adjacent to it that is lower than it. You can also place on top, so this right here is appropriate or an acceptable placement because this 4 high column is taller than this 2 high, and this 1 high column is taller than this 1 high, and it's not touching anything else orthogonally adjacent to itself. You can then score cards based on what you see from your perspective. You can switch this card any direction you want. I want it this direction because I'm going to score these 2 greens with these 2 whites on top. It doesn't matter what else is around it. So I will get 1 point. I will then discard this, or I will keep this card to score it for the point, and then I'll go ahead and drop another card from one of the decks below. The endgame is determined by a specific number of rounds. You have an endgame scoring card that is a specific color for you, and you will gain 1 point for every 3 squares that are facing you of that color. So for this example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gray squares that are facing me, so I would get 2 points. You then add those 2 points to any cards that you've scored throughout the game, and whoever has the most points wins.
I think we both agree that the blocks are like stupendously cool.
They are. I was surprised at the weight, especially because the board feels a little unstable. It was more stable once I finished putting it all the way together. Like, we played half the game with it not fully connected.
I was concerned because any game that has a board that's here and you reach your hands in here tends to be something you knock over. However, 90% of the game is above it. You only reach from down to the bottom occasionally.
It's not so bad. And I think the weight of the blocks helps. Like, they're metal, so they're solid. They'll bump less.
Yeah, so that's cool. You said you didn't like the slipcover thing?
I don't like the slipcover thing. It's hard to get on and off, especially as the box expands.
It's really beat up, and we haven't played the game that much.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in the Dice Tower library, but even still.
If it was my own copy, not the Dice Tower library copy, I would just get rid of the sleeve.
But then it would just look like this, and you wouldn't know what game it was.
Right.
That would really bother me, actually. So.
But the shiny, like what do you call it? The spot UV
coating?
looks really cool. I think it's all shiny and fun.
All right, so I'm not a huge fan of this game. I want to explain that because I'm going to say some negative things about it. But I wanted to say why. There's a couple reasons I'm not a fan. I do like.
Okay.
I like the concept actually. I keep searching. I mentioned at the beginning this genre of build something and then match the card.
Yeah.
But I find myself disliking them more often than not.
Really?
And
okay.
And I think my reason, I'm like looking for the perfect one. The reasons I don't like them are really exasperated in this one. So my biggest problem with this game, by far, is that especially it's not as bad in 2-player, but if you play with 3 or more, you might as well just stare at the ceiling when it's not your turn. Don't try to look ahead and guess what's going to be there, because there's just so much chaos. Someone might put a block there. So you don't want to get too caught up in that. Then that compiled with the fact that I have to sit, and I'm not kidding, I have to sit like this the whole game because I'm tall, and I have to look, because to do this properly, you have to look straight on at the thing. And I played with someone who was quite short, and they had to do this the whole time to see. I think you're the perfect height.
I am the perfect height, so I actually had 0 issues with that. And I thought, how clever that they thought to make it higher and they put the market underneath.
It's not for everyone, no.
I could see it perfectly.
I'm not kidding. Because if you're not doing that, you look down a little, and it's much harder to see.
It's a little bit off. You can always count. Like, if you look above, especially a lot of the shots I did in the overview were slightly above, you could see stuff behind, but you could tell, obviously, that one's on the flat layer, so it doesn't count. I didn't feel like that was too hard to tell the difference.
No, but I also just accept what you say. If you're sitting across from me, you're like, I got this one, I'm like, great.
That is true.
Because I have no idea.
And it's hard to then combat what the other person sees. If I put this down, am I adding a green for their green bonus card? I don't know, I can't tell. There's a little bit of that.
So that's one problem I have. I have 3 problems. The second problem is that when you take the blocks off the bottom, that's not an interesting thing to me, because you just pick a row and take it. Since you don't really know what you'll need, you'll be like, I guess I need some grays. It's always better to take blocks than not, because you will run out of blocks before the game ends. Yeah. And having blocks is good, so why waste your actions getting cards? You might as well get more blocks than everybody else. I think you have, a max of 5?
7.
7?
I think it's
you
7.
should always be full of blocks.
Yeah.
Because you don't lose out by taking blocks. I found that to be weird.
I was surprised that it ran out. That was something that was a little bit strange to me, and I was like, it's what it is.
Yeah, but it makes it so that you pull blocks. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning of the game, I was going to pull to 7, then you play, then you pull back up, because if anyone doesn't, they might find themselves with a lot fewer choices at the end, which can make you lose.
Right.
And then the third thing was then I just thought it was very wonky block placement. I don't like the rules of...
I think that was my biggest frustration, was the whole diagonal and have to be taller.
The have to be taller rules what really throws it off. I get that you're saying it's diagonal, which again makes you think another layer, because you're not doing diagonal. You're looking flat.
Yeah.
And you might say that's the clever part of it. But the whole it has to be taller led to a lot of questions like...
This one's taller than this one that I'm putting it next to, but it also happens to be next to this other one that happens to be taller. So because this side of it isn't tall enough, I have to not put it there.
And in every game, someone was disappointed because they're like, wow! And I was like, I'm sorry, but you placed that wrong. And I found that to be frustrating. So all those things combined, for me, make this... it's just a miss. I mean... I want to like it. I like the concept, but all that stuff together just, I don't know.
I just think polyomino games, for me in general, just tend to be in my higher arch of what I enjoy. I just thoroughly enjoy something about weird shaped pieces, putting them together and trying to make patterns.
Well, this is actually polyhedral, but...
Well, okay. Way to be pedantic.
Well, no, but I think there is a difference.
No, okay.
Because looking at something in 2D...
It is different.
Which you are doing in this game, because this is like... polyhedral, but you're looking at a polyhedral. You're looking at one side. Yes.
Yeah. But I don't know. I like that stuff, and so I think that is just inherently going to make it higher. I do agree with a couple of your complaints, like the placing rules. I feel like are oddly constrictive, and I don't understand why they're there. Like you said, the diagonal one is okay, but the taller than issue, I struggled with it, but I figured it out, and then I was fine. I don't really have a problem with the way you select pieces, and I don't have a problem with people changing stuff on your side of the board, not on your turn, because there's that little part of me that's like hoping that you'll make it better for me.
Sure.
And so I'm excited about that.
I get that, but it does slow the game down, because you have to wait till your turn to kind of start thinking. Because you really want to, if you can pull off 2 cards in the same turn, you want to.
And I do think that that's something that's not so much an issue with me.
And that's the one thing I'll give an option to in this game is a positive is when you do pull it off, you're like, I mean, it does feel really good. You're like,
Yeah.
I built out this piece, and look at that. It's off 2 cards. I don't know. I found that to be enjoyable.
How did you feel about you having to play something to make it score? So if someone else, like you've been setting up for a pattern the whole time, and then someone else makes it happen, not on your turn, you can't score that card. You have to start everything over again on a different location.
I don't mind that. First of all, that rarely happens, but when it does happen, I'm okay with it because if there's anything in the game, I'm like, I put a piece out and someone's like, oh, thank you. I'm like, well, I did the work. Why are you getting the points?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
Okay.
However, everything combined, I already said all my thoughts on it, really. It's a great production. I really like Inside Up. I like the things that they do. But this one for me is just a 5 out of 10. I just don't want to play it again. But I wouldn't mind keeping the blocks and building something with them.
There you go. I'm going to give this a 6.5. I thought it enjoyable, but I don't think it has enough to keep me coming back time and time again. There's just so many games like this out there that I feel like I enjoy the rules and the requirements a little bit more than this. But I would play it if someone was excited to play it, I think is where I'm at.
Well, there you go, folks. That's Block. Oh, no. Block and Key. Check it out. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Wendy Yee.
Have fun building.